Hey everyone, my name is Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Today we are going to be talking about what a reading sprint is. This thing that exists is one of the best things out there to help anyone to achieve any sort of a reading goal that they have. Now, I first found out about reading sprints owing to seeing a lot of videos out there on BookTube saying, reading sprint this, doing a reading sprint here, this is my reading sprint, this is their reading sprint, we all get together and do a little bit of a reading sprint. And I had the weirdest thoughts in my mind as to what a reading sprint was. For those of you who don't know what a reading sprint is, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, I had many thoughts, so I will explain them to you in due time. First of all, some housekeeping. I do these in all of my videos ever since I've done audio videos. Just housekeeping, discussing what's going on and all that. The weather's a little bit cooler now, which is lovely because it was so hot. Oh my gosh. I want some winter. If we can get some snow out here, it might be freaky to a lot of other Melburnians in Australia, but I would love it. I would run outside and play in the snow right now. If you're looking for a little bit of sun, look no further than exchanging your weather with Melbourne, Australia. Okay. Yes, have a word with Mother Nature and see what we can do if we can swap, even just for the day. Because Mr. Francy has been baking in this heat. It has been absolutely ridiculous. It is also tennis season. I know a lot of people don't care, but hey, everyone talks about a sport they like. Even if it's something like rhythmic gymnastics or figure skating, through to the rougher, tougher sports like American football or Australian football or soccer. But I love tennis. Okay, so give me a second because it's January and in Australia we celebrate tennis in the biggest way over here and then we don't for the rest of the year. And I've just been having an amazing time watching as much tennis as I can consume. With work and with reading and everything, I don't have as much time as I would like, but I have watched some great matches. It's great that tennis is back, and if you're a tennis fan, I hope you are enjoying it as well. The Australian Open is right around the corner. It is one of the 4 biggest events for the tennis calendar year, and it is played in my home city. It's played in Melbourne. So very, very, very excited for the Australian Open to get underway. Is there anything else I need to update you all on? I don't think so. So, therefore, let's jump right on in. If you have anything that you would like to see pop up in future videos, let me know in the comment section below. I have some ideas, but always looking for extra. So let me know if there's something you would like me to specifically discuss. All right, let us begin. We are talking about what is a reading sprint. So here we go. So for those of you who didn't know what a reading sprint was, what came to mind? What was that first thing? Let me know that in the comments below. I tell you, the very first thought I had in mind when I kept seeing all this, I have a reading sprint, you have a reading sprint, we're all getting together and doing a little bit of a reading sprint. My very first thought that came to mind was, oh my gosh, these are people who love to rush through a book and just read as quickly as some AI being who just can read a tome in 10 seconds. You know, there's ones that go done, done, and I'm like, no, I can't sprint through a book. What are you kidding me? I need to enjoy the book. If I sprint through it, I'm not gonna take anything in. But no, my friends, I don't know who came up with the term sprints for a reading sprint, because I don't see it as a sprint at all. But a reading sprint, if I were to rename it, if the BookTube gods gave me the power to rename reading sprints, I would call it dedicated reading instead of a reading sprint. So what is a dedicated reading, in my words, or a reading sprint? A reading sprint is where you literally take dedicated time to read. Now, from there, reading sprints differ depending on who's hosting the sprint, how many people are there, how involved the sprint is. It really depends. But the standard for a reading sprint is that a timer is somehow set. During that time, everyone who is there at that reading sprint reads. When that time is up, everyone gets back together and discusses how they went, and then they talk about various things. Again, it really depends on the channel. Some people might go into more depth and detail about the book they're reading, obviously keeping it spoiler free, because the last thing we want to do is spoil for other people. But at other times, depending on how open the channel is, you might talk about something completely random. How, like, during your last sprint, you, instead of reading, went off to eat some fabulous lasagna that your nonna made the night before. And, you can talk about all different things during that chat time. But the main point of a sprint is to dedicate yourself to that reading during the set period of time when everyone is reading. That is the main point. Now, it begs the question, okay, Mr. Francy, I understand. A reading sprint is where we read for a certain amount of time, we come back, we chat, then we read again for a certain amount of time, we come back and chat. Okay, so how much time do we read for? Well, there is no hard and fast answer to that one, my friends. There really isn't. Some booktubers, or just sprinters in general, because sprinting is not just limited to booktube, and I think that's a myth that some people believe to be true. Sprinting can happen anywhere. It doesn't just have to be on booktube. Me, for example, I do my sprinting on Discord. So some people may think that I don't sprint because I don't sprint on booktube. I do sprints every single weekend. I just do them on my Discord. And other people do them on their Discord too. Some people, I don't know, might do it on Twitter. I don't know. Can you sprint on Twitter? I don't know. And some will do it on various other forms of social media. It works no matter where you are. But how long does every single sprint go for? And this is where terminology becomes really hard to get into, the more intricately detailed and specific we get when we discuss reading sprint terminology. There is the reading sprint itself, as in the duration from the entire time from the first sprint, when the sprinting session first begins, usually with chatting, through to the saying goodbye part of an entire session of a sprint. There we go. That's the word we'll use, session. How long the session goes for versus how long the mini sprints in that session go for. Okay, if you sprinted before, you know what I'm saying. It's just finding words to describe what I'm saying. So, okay, let's touch upon the session itself. So in a reading sprint session, there can be many different sprints. There's no limit to that. Some hosts of sprints will just do one. Some might do two, some might do three, some might do many more, and if you're me, some might do many, almost too many more. I do way too many sprints throughout one session. And then we need to look at how long does each sprint in the session go for, and that depends too. I've seen sprints that go for 10 minutes. I haven't seen sprints that have gone for less than that, but I have seen sprints that have gone for 10 minutes. I've seen sprints that have gone for half an hour. I've seen sprints that have gone for 45 minutes. Most of my sprints will go for an hour, if not a little bit longer. So it'll be something random like 1 hour and 2 minutes or 1 hour and 5 minutes or something like that, because I like to have longer sprints. But it really just depends on the host themselves and how long they want to be sprinting for. And also, it can come down to the particular type of reading sprint session that is being hosted. Is this a reading sprint session that airs more on the side of the reading, or is this a reading sprint session that airs more on the side of the chatting? And I know one particular channel that I follow, which is Tiffany's channel, the Beach Bum Bookworm. She and a lot of other friends on all various channels do reading sprints, and sometimes they'll have sprints where they prioritize more with the reading, and so the chatting sections where there's no reading taking place are a lot shorter. And then there are other times where they prioritize with the chatting, so the reading sprints themselves are shorter and the chatting space is longer. It really just comes down to what you want to do. Now, for me, as I say, my sprints themselves go for an hour or more. And this is my main sprints. I'll get into a little more intricate details as we go along, because my sprints are very different to anything I've seen. And I'm not saying that in any way to boast about my sprints. I'm just saying from a neutral standpoint, my sprints are very different to any other sprints that I've seen. Different people do things differently, and I love that. I never want anything to do with reading to become a monolith. I love when people do things differently and make them their own. But for me, my standard sprints go for anywhere from 1 hour to 1 hour, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 minutes. So 1 hour and those many minutes, because I build my sprints on the premise and promise that we're going to do 1 hour sprints. And so when we come back and we chat and talk about what we've been reading and how well we did, no matter how long the chat goes till, I then look at when the next 5 or 0 is coming up, and I will make sure that we're sprinting for that hour. So if we finish at 32 past the hour, which, a little tip for everyone who may not know this, almost everywhere, not everywhere, but almost everywhere around the world may have different hours in their time zone, but the minutes in time are the same. So if you say, we're going to read till 45 past, then it doesn't matter if it's 2:45 a.m. or 12:45 p.m. or if it's 7:45 p.m. It doesn't matter, because you're all still reading till 45 past. But for me, if we stop chatting at 32 past, I would then say reading till 35 past. So it's an hour and 3 minutes, because I like to have longer reading time. That's just what I like to do. So it just really comes down to what you like to do. Also, reading sprints have received this reputation of being something that is quite stressful and pressure-filled. I don't see it that way. But then again, I will only take part in reading sprints that I'm going to use a word that I don't like to use, but I can't think of another word to use right now. So going against my better judgment, I'll use the word vibe with, so that you know what I'm referring to. If I don't gel with a particular style of a sprint and the way it's being done, I'm just not going to be a part of that sprint. I'm not having anything against the sprint. I'm just not going to be a part of it because it doesn't work for me. So the sprints that I'm a part of, yeah, there's no pressure in those sprints, and everyone's there to support each other. And it doesn't matter if you've read one book in the space of 100 days versus if you've read 50 books in the space of 100 days. No one cares, because they're there to support each other, and they're also there to read for themselves. So there's no judgment. I don't see there being any pressure. In fact, I have seen reading sprints where people might have 45 minutes to read. One person may come back and say, I've read 1% of this book, and everyone goes, yay, well done, that's fantastic. And it's because it is fantastic, you read. And so if you find yourself in a pressure-filled situation when it comes to a sprint, you need to decide what works for you and what doesn't. For me personally, if I were to say I read 1% during 45 minutes of reading and they said to me, only 1%, I'd probably leave, because I don't need that judgment. I'm there to read and do things my way, and just because you read 50% in 45 minutes because you listened to an audiobook on 5 times speed somehow, good for you. I'm going to read at my pace and you'll read at yours. You know what I mean? So the sprints that I'm a part of, I can only refer to them. And in those sprints, I don't feel any pressure. I don't feel any judgment whatsoever. And I think that's fantastic. Now, there have been some complaints that I've seen from some people that are extremely valid, which include not enough acknowledgement for comments that are made during the chatting portion of a sprint. So if someone says, I'm reading a cozy mystery right now and I'm really enjoying it. The protagonist is so funny and I made 25%, which is amazing. And then you might have a host going, and if you say this, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I see this with so many people that I'm pointing it out because we're transparent here and we point things out, okay? We have people who respond to that paragraph long by saying, nice. and that's it. And then they move on to the next comment. And the person who wrote that comment is thinking, hang on, I just wrote a whole paragraph. Like, I mean, I just wrote a whole paragraph and all you have to say is nice. And then you move on to someone who might say, I read 2%, and you respond to them going, oh, what book are you reading at the moment? Look, it's fine. It is what it is. And this is no judgment. This is just things that people have come to me and said, and that I agree with, in that sometimes there's not enough interaction. Now, it really depends how many people you're hosting for a sprint. If you're hosting 100 people and every single one of those 100 people are making comments in the chat portion and you only have 5 minutes to get through that chat portion, then the word nice will have to suffice because you're getting through 100 people. So you're going, nice, 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 nice. And even though I've only just said nice, we've hit the 5-minute mark. We now need to read again. So that's a different scenario. But when you're not hosting a lot of people and people take the time to discuss with you their experience, it can be quite disheartening for the discusser or discussee, however you say it, the one that is saying this thing, to only get a 1 or 2 word response and that's it. And they don't feel heard. Now, again, this is not me saying you need to change the way you do your sprints. How dare you? If you see a paragraph, you must spend 5 minutes commenting on them and bowing down to the paragraph king or queen. Not at all. I'm just saying this is what I've heard and I can understand where they're coming from. As the commenter has taken significantly a lot more time to try and attempt a discussion with someone, it doesn't matter if it's in a reading sprint or just a normal situation. If someone is messaging you on some form of an instant messenger, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I don't know if you can even message on Snapchat, but it doesn't matter what it is. And they write 2 paragraphs to you and all you're doing is giving them a thumbs up or a smiley face or a yes or a that's great or something. Whether you are the commenter or not, the one that did comment is going to feel a little bit disappointed, and depending on how confident they are, they're going to respond to you, because I know I've had this happen to me before. They're going to say, that's it? That's all you're saying? After everything I said, all you're saying is, nice? Okay. So, yeah, certainly that's something that I've tried to make a greater effort towards when it comes to my reading sprints. When people say things, it doesn't matter how much you say. If you say a whole paragraph or if you say a little bit, I try to invest in what is being said. If someone says, I made it to 5% in my book this sprint and I don't know what you're reading, at the very least I'm going to say, oh, what are you reading at the moment? Whenever we come back from a sprint where I'm doing my sprints, I'll always ask the question, I'll say, okay, everyone, we've made it to, for example, 35 past. How did everyone do? Because I'm intrigued to see how everyone did. And if you came back to me and said, I'm 34% into this book, I might then turn around and say to you, oh, how are you liking it so far? You know, starting a dialogue. I think it's great that we have the chat sessions within sprints because it gives us that time to have that downtime, but also to have a discussion. Now, it is very much understood on my end that we don't go into spoilers. And if you don't have a platform like Discord, I had to think of what it's called there, like Discord, where you can redact spoilers in messages, then it is extremely hard for some people who really want to talk about this big climactic moment that has occurred in the book, but it's a spoiler, so what do you do? I mean, you find a way to zoom out, and honestly, that's the best thing you can do, is say the climax was so amazing, I didn't expect so-and-so to go there, but they did. That is still spoiler-free, but still, you can see, even when people are keeping things spoiler-free, if they're getting passionate about something, and sometimes people respond to that, and sometimes they don't, and I don't know, people have commented on that to me before. They wish that people would comment a lot more, and react a lot more, and they don't, and that's disappointing, and I can understand why. So now I want to talk about another thing that mixes up my reading sprints to a lot of others, outside of the fact that I sprint for an hour every single standard sprint. The reason I say the word standard sprint is because I do warm-up and cool-down sprints, and I love these. These were introduced very late on in the year last year, and I'm going to continue to do them. A warm-up sprint for me goes shorter. It has a shorter duration than a standard sprint. And in that warm-up sprint, you do everything you can to prepare for the sprint. So you can be eating, watching BookTube, playing a game, having a chat with your mum, watching a show. It doesn't matter. It's a warm-up sprint. And then we have cool-down sprints so that we don't end suddenly. So a warm-up sprint is the indication we're going to start the regular sprint soon. Everyone get ready and do what you need to do. And a cool-down sprint is, okay, we're about to end, but hey, you may be headed towards the end of your current chapter. The cool-down sprint is a great time to finish that off. Or maybe you write in a journal. Cool-down sprint is a great chance to write in that journal before you finish off your sprinting session and go on to do whatever it is that you're going on to do. Really interesting is that 99% of the people that sprint with me are probably, when they're done because they're going to bed. Because, yeah, sprints are usually done at nighttime, and nighttime in the US, a lot of my Discord subscribers are American, and so it's a different time zone. So for me, I'm reading these sessions. My sprinting sessions go from, oh my gosh, somewhere around 8 o'clock in the morning, my time, through to 5 p.m. in the evening. I sprint for a long time. There's a reason for it. I'll tell you about it in a minute why. But that time is usually about like 6, 7 Eastern. So by the time we get on, it's like 1, 2 a.m. in the morning over in America. So people are going to bed or whatever. But yeah, in any case, the warm-up sprints and the cool-down sprints work for me regardless. Bottom line, reading sprints, and this is just in my opinion, serve nothing but, aside from the name, and that's just my opinion, serve nothing but to be an advantage to readers. I would not achieve half or a quarter of the reading I do without reading sprints. They're a great way to focus on reading, to put aside anything and everything else that is going on in your life, be it work, family, drama, stresses, whatever else it is. You leave it all at the door and you enter into a room where you focus on your reading. You have dedicated time to read, which helps you to get through more reading than you may do during the week. For me, I don't get any time at all during the week to read these days, which is a real shock for me to the system, I have to say, because I'm so used to reading every single day these past 3 years, and lately with work, that's not possible at all. So I only read on the weekend. But also, you get to put aside everything else. You get to get through a lot more reading than you normally would, but you're also in a world, for the sake of using a term, a world of readers. People like you who love to read enough that they're happy to come together in a space for a certain amount of time to take part in a singular passion that everyone in the group has, which is that of reading. And so, whilst the terminology may be extremely off-putting, or is that just me? Let me know in the comments below if that's just me. I don't like the word sprint. I just don't think, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, I just don't think it's a good word. I don't think it's inviting. But anyway, but I just think what it is fantastic. And anyone who is a reader definitely should take the time to try a sprint. You may like it, you may not, but at least you've given it a go. It's like anything else in life. How do you know if you like something or not until you've tried it? And I highly recommend giving it a go. Different sprints are run differently. Some are a lot of fun, some are a lot more serious, and some are a lot more fun or a lot more serious within the same channel, depending upon what day of the week it is. I mean, it really just depends on the situation. But I wanted to create this video, and I've been wanting to do this video for a very long time, to discuss reading sprints, and I'm glad that I have this space where I'm doing these audio videos where I can be they're more discussional videos, because this needs to be a casual chat, because I don't see any other videos out there entitled, "What is a reading sprint?" And I remember my reaction prior to knowing what a reading sprint was and thinking, what the heck is this? And having all these horrible thoughts in my mind and thinking this is going to be horrible for me. And why do people want to rush through a book? So I just wanted to put it out there in case anyone didn't know and they were a bit too scared to jump into a sprint, but then they thought, oh, someone's giving an explanation. Let's take a look at the explanation and at least know what it is. I think had someone done that for me earlier on, had I come across a video that said, what is a reading sprint? I would have clicked onto it very quickly to get a Clips Notes version. Okay, this is what it is. Oh, now that I know, I'm definitely joining it because that sounds amazing to me. You know what I mean? So if you haven't given a reading sprint a go, I highly recommend it. There are so many out there that you can access in so many different ways for so many different time zones. For me, mine run during the day if you are Australian and during the night if you're American. I try to just make it work with everyone in everyone's time zones, and that's on the weekends in Australia and Friday nights and Saturday nights over in America. So come along and join if you would like. But there is pretty much almost always a reading sprint every single day somewhere at some time. So if you only have certain amounts of times or days of the week or specific times during those days of the week where you can sprint, I'm sure there is something out there for you. It's just a matter of looking around to find where they are or just getting in contact with people and asking people, you know, can you tell me if there are any sprints that are occurring around this day, around this time? I'm sure that everyone will want to help each other. I haven't come across readers who aren't helpful yet, and I think maybe that's because I do stick to BookTube mainly. On BookTube, everyone seems really, really nice, which is just so lovely. We're all readers here. We're all indulging in the same passion, and we're all people who want to support each other. And I think because of that, I mean, maybe I'm living under a rock and I don't know about drama that's going on elsewhere. Maybe I am. But from what I see, people seem to be extremely helpful. And that's why I encourage reaching out to your fellow readers. And you don't have to just stick to BookTube. Even I'm on Facebook because I'm extremely old school. Like how old school? Extremely old school. I'm on Facebook, okay? And there are reading groups on Facebook. There's like a TBR group that I'm a part of. There are book club groups that I'm a part of. There's monthly reading this and this reading that and seriously 97% of my Facebook newsfeed page is all about reading, which is so fantastic. For someone like me, if you know me, you know that's fantastic because I try not to associate with negative energy, and a lot of Facebook can be extremely dramatic and it's just too much for me and I don't need it. But yeah, and everyone is extremely helpful over there. Everyone's extremely helpful over on YouTube. Reach out to people, even reach out to myself. Comment below and let me know when would be a great time for you to do a reading sprint, and I'll point you in a direction where one can be held. Another great thing for me, and I don't know if other people offer this, but if you do, let us know in the comments below so we can set people up to links to wherever you do this as well. But in my Discord, I allow anyone to sprint at any time that they want. So just because I may not be there, I'm happy to hand the reins over to anyone else. The first in, best dressed, so to say. If you want to host, go in, jump in, see if others are there and host a sprint yourself on my channel, on my Discord. I'm more than happy for that. So, you know, it works for everyone. Everyone can sprint whenever they want on my Discord. And if you offer that, let us know. We'll put it in the description. But, bottom line is, sprints are amazing. They're a great way to dedicate time to reading, get more reading done, really get lost in the world of that book that you're reading, and also make great friends as well. I've made so many friends thanks to sprints. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. And yet somehow we've made it again to the half-hour mark. How do I keep doing this? I don't intend on it. I really, really don't. I think to myself, I'll do a 10-minute video and then it becomes half an hour. But that's okay because you're all here. And if you've made it this far, leave 3 sparkly hearts in the comments below so I know you've made it this far. But in the meantime, thank you so much for all of your love and your support during this time while I am doing audio videos. I really do appreciate it, and I'm so glad you all are loving these discussional videos. If you have any ideas for future videos you'd like to see me do, let me know that in the comments section below. But in the meantime, as I always say, please do be kind and love one another and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say, so say it with me. Happy reading. Bye, everyone.